Hello and welcome. Here at the CCMA, we are always listening to member needs and focus areas so that we can continue to support contact centre leaders to strive within their role. Feedback which we've received from our members is telling us that employee engagement is a real key focus for organisations for this year. Employees have changed their expectation, and that new hybrid working environment really just changes what it means to an employee from their what they want and what they need from their employer to find that work-life balance. So the CCMA Academy is proud to announce the launch of a new employee engagement course. And Nicola, who is one of our experienced trainers, who today already delivers the feedback skills workshop and the strategic thinking course, to which we've always received fantastic feedback, is now helping us and to bring this course to life through the Academy. So with the launch of the employee engagement course, Nicola has joined me today to give a taster of what the participants who will join the course will gain from attending it. So Nicola, welcome and thank you.
Oh, thanks, Kate. It's good to be here. We were just chatting kind of before we started, weren't we? And saying, God, it's just a good chance to have a conversation, isn't it? And just chat about some of these things that you're hearing when you're out with the members, and I'm hearing when I'm out with clients and events and things. It's a big topic right now.
It's huge. And I think every forum that I'm in at the moment, employee engagement is talked about in one form or another. So I just feel like it's really relevant now for us to really bring that to life. And I suppose that you and I could chat, and we just thought, let's bring it live and let's share this chat with everybody else. So with employee engagement being such a key focus area for organisations, how do you think that it's become such a priority?
Yeah, it's a good question because so employee engagement should always be a priority, right? The benefits of employee engagement are huge, and I know that I'm preaching to the converted here, preaching to the choir and all that. We do see that productivity is far better with engaged employees. We do see that discretionary efforts, so kind of going above and beyond, wanting to do that, is far greater with engaged employees. There's been studies that have shown that profitability in terms of outputs of engaged employees is far greater. Clearly, you're retaining good people, so you're having not having the cost of recruitment and replacement. They're more present than absent, so you're not having that absenteeism going on. So absolutely loads of benefits of having engaged employees. So it should always be a priority. I think what people are finding at the moment, and certainly the conversations that I'm having, is around the fact that what was working before the pandemic, this kind of in-person, face-to-face working, doing some of the activities and areas that people were addressing actually in person are just not working in the same way anymore. And I think that's probably twofold. One, that we probably relied very much on in-person activity, which we don't always have now. And the second is that employees' expectations have changed. What they're wanting from work, their workplace, their employer, it's different. And it's about adjusting what's available to meet those needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think that could be something that's kind of a quick fix then? Because you may have had an employee engagement plan in place for a number of years, and that might have actually been fine. And that's always maybe a little bit of a tweak, maybe change an incentive along the way here and there. But actually, do you think that now is, because it's now fundamentally changed, do you think there is a quick fix to freshen that up and to really refresh what that engagement plan looks like?
Oh, I wish there was a quick fix. We'd be very rich, wouldn't we? We'd be like, right, okay, conversation ends here. Just pay us all this money and we'll tell you what it is you need to do. Yeah, unfortunately not. And I think it is about revisiting what is important. Which is really cliche, it's quite an empty phrase, that, isn't it? So if we think about things like core psychological needs, okay? So core psychological needs, I talk about this a lot in the sessions that I do. Having control over our own destiny. So control is one of them. Knowing that we have autonomy and decision-making powers to be able to do the things that we want to do. Competence, so being good at something and being known as being good at that thing. So getting feedback, back to the feedback skills, getting feedback on how we're performing, and knowing that we're doing good work. And then community or belonging and purpose is kind of linked into the third one. And this is the idea that we are doing something that is making something else better or different, that we belong to a bigger picture somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, employee engagement is absolutely centred on those three things. You might also have heard Dan Pink's autonomy, mastery and purpose as well. That's a similar sort of thing. That's more about motivation, and obviously motivation is a little bit different to engagement. But this idea that actually when people think about what's most important to them in the workplace now, it is things like, am I getting to do the things that I want to do in my life overall? Am I getting control over how and where I work and the type of work that I do? Am I getting chance to do the things that I'm good at every day and where my strengths are and the things that I enjoy doing? And am I being told that I'm good at these things, or am I being taken for granted? And actually, can I see how my work is fitting into the overall purpose of the company or my own self-purpose and what I want to get out of life? Is my work fitting in with that? And if we look at those three things, that idea of control, competence, and community and connection, then that is a really good starting point. There you go, freebie for you. That's a really good starting point to kind of set out your engagement plan and think about how are people engaging with us, and are we providing them with the opportunity to have those 3 C's in their lives at work.
Amazing. And I think it's right, just by breaking that down further to really understand and think about what it means for that employee is so key for businesses, because actually that then fits into your strategic vision, your plan going forward, to really support, as you mentioned before, about it's reflective in your performance and the figures and the underlining commercials of a business potentially.
Absolutely.
Get your people engaged and less training costs and recruitment costs that absolutely can skyrocket if you've got a workforce which is unengaged.
Yeah.
Go on. What were you going
I was going to say, I couldn't resist saying like less training costs. It's actually about focusing the training in the areas that you're going to get the most benefit from. And if you're kind of constantly doing induction training because people are leaving, then that's great. But actually, if you could repurpose that budget into actually developing other people, the people who've been there for years and maybe haven't had that investment, the people who you're aspiring talent of the future, then that's going to get an even greater bang for your buck, so to say, isn't it? Because you're actually going to be putting that money in a place that can be super helpful.
Exactly. And it's you creating your own talent pathway then, aren't you, by investing in those individuals rather than the induction training.
So what are you hearing then? Because you're out and about a lot at the moment. Been quite a few events recently. What are you hearing that your members and audiences saying in that space?
So members for me are, what we're hearing is that the attrition is high, and this consistent theme that attrition is high, and the absence is also getting higher than what we've seen in the past 2 years. And that is driven mainly from, yes, there's been some genuine absences within that, but from a point of view is what we're hearing from the membership is that employees, there isn't necessarily what the employees were wanting historically may have changed. So somebody now who works from home more so, and they may have got rid of their car, they may have got a pet now. So how they engage in that office, when you were saying before that that face-to-face is not there anymore, how they're engaged is they're probably disengaged more so from their role. They don't feel part of it anymore. So we are hearing that employment engagement is a massive focus for organisations, because they are realising they need to do something because of absence and attrition and the lack of talent pathways. Ultimately, they're losing that talent and that knowledge from their teams because they're going to another organisation that may have a slightly better employee engagement plan. And may have something where the staff could probably feel more valued, or that work-life balance may work a little bit better for them based on that current scenario and that new norm for them. So we are seeing that businesses are they are realising they need to do something, because the world has changed, and what was done in the past necessarily isn't working now across all areas. And it was quite funny. I was talking to one member who was sharing with me that when they were looking at their incentive plan, they realised that the incentive plan wasn't necessarily matching the demographic for their contact centre teams. So they were saying, we're just going back to basics. We've had to really look at what incentives are actually working, because it just doesn't match. Our benefits don't match that demographic anymore, because our demographic has slightly changed. So I thought, actually, breaking that down and really looking at it from the outside in, and that zooming out, really, and that investment, that time, can be really beneficial to just think about things slightly differently. And what do your employees actually want? And how do you make it a bit more fresh? How do you make it more engaging? How are you going to take them on that journey?
Yeah, and that's a really good point though, because I'm finding when I'm talking to some of my clients and some of the organisations that I talk to, that one of the challenges at the moment is that the employees don't always know what they want. They need a bit of help almost in kind of working out, well, what is it that's most important to me right now? I don't know about you, but whenever I kind of think of something that happened a year or 18 months ago, it feels like it was about 3 years ago. And we can't kind of put that stamp on time quite so much. And kind of when we're thinking back about things, think about what were things like before and what are things like now, and what's important to me as things have moved on. That can in itself can be a real challenge. I did a session with a client, an HR client, early this week, and I asked them to kind of think about creating their ideal working pattern and their ideal working setup. So where would they work and what hours would they work, essentially? And it wasn't to say that we're going to wave a magic wand and go, right, everyone can have that, because that isn't realistic for the needs of the business. But it was more about getting them to think about, what do they actually want and how do they want this to work? And I asked them 2 questions. I asked them to write down on a piece of paper when they think, time zone, when they think they're most productive. And everybody grabbed a pen, scrolled away, wrote something down. I was like, right, now I want you to write down when you think you're most creative. And they were like, oh, I haven't really thought about that before. Or it was a case of, well, I'm productive at these times because I don't have any meetings scheduled. So it was the schedule that was dictating when they were productive, rather than their natural desire of when they were particularly productive. And then the same with creative, they kind of think about that. And the idea there is that your productive time, generally speaking, and I appreciate there might be people listening and going, no, it's the complete opposite for me, but your productive time generally is the time that you work independently, and that you can do whatever it is that you just need to get on with and just get done. And your creative time is your collaborative time. And that's where you would generally kind of bounce ideas around with people, hear other people's ideas, contribute to those, be inspired to have your own thoughts, etc. So by starting to think about, what's productive and what's creative, is a starting point to then think about, what do I want from my work and the work that I'm doing, and what do I want from the hours that I do? And actually, I'm hearing, again, a different company altogether, I'm hearing that the split shift is back. People are loving a split shift these days, and that wasn't the case for a very long time. But actually having the opportunity to do a bit of work while children are at school, for example, and then be able to log on again in the evening and do a bit more work 8 till 10 at night or whatever, that's suddenly really quite attractive to a certain number of people again, which wasn't before. And we almost forget that some of these things are options sometimes. So I think I would really encourage people to encourage their people to think about, what do they actually want from work? If they could wave a magic wand, what does good look like for them? And maybe a bit of coaching and a bit of support to kind of help them get to that answer. And then when you know that, then you can start to build your engagement strategy on the back of it. And of course, you can build your engagement strategy regardless without knowing that. You might think you know, whatever. But wouldn't it be great just to kind of do that bit of work up front first?
Yeah. Just understanding what people actually want is really key to make sure you get it right.
Yeah,
absolutely. So when you've got attendees attending this new course, then, so the employee engagement course, what are probably the key things that you think a participant is going to get from attending this training?
Brilliant. So this is a fab little course. it's a 1 day, and one of the things that we do on this session is we kind of combine a bit of learning with a lot of activity. So the morning is very much learning, and the afternoon is very much kind of workshop and a tangible output at the end. And what we do in the morning session is we actually really explore what engagement is, what employee engagement is, colleague engagement, whatever you want to call it, what engagement is. And some of the feedback that we got very early on when we started running this was, goodness, we never actually thought to stop and check in that we were all speaking the same language around engagement. And just differentiating things like engagement from motivation and engagement from satisfaction, and how motivation isn't necessarily happy, and what happy is and what it isn't, and all of these things. And also looking at things like intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, and a little bit, there's always a little bit of psychology in any course that I do, I think. So there's always a little bit of kind of, you know, how the brain works and how we engage people, and all that really, really good stuff. So we do quite a bit, and it's very engaging, but quite a bit around engagement as a topic. Look at things like the sweet spot of where we want to be in terms of working to our strengths, doing the work that we enjoy, contributing, so linked into the core psychological needs from before. So we do all that in the morning, and then in the afternoon we take the survey results. Now, if you've got your own colleague engagement survey that you run within your centre already, then we'll use those results. If you don't have one, or you're looking to refresh it, we have one that you can use. And we take those survey results, and we also take your values, your company values, if you have them, and we look to bring those two things together and create an engagement action plan that you can then take forward and disperse amongst your teams, and go forth and deliver great things as far as engagement is concerned. And the afternoon is very much about the delegates creating that plan together. So typically the people that would attend this session would be your engagement champions, or a team of people who are looking to improve engagement. So you might have a team of team leaders who are wanting to improve engagement within the contact centre, or you might have a group of engagement champions across a particular function or the business as a whole, and they would come along and do that. We typically work up to about 20 people at any one time. It is in person, it is delivered on site, and it is delivered exclusive to your organisation as well. So some of the courses that I do currently with the CCMA are open courses, and anybody can come along to those, and that's absolutely great. This is actually very much tailored to your strategy, tailored to your values, and tailored to your engagement survey results. So we'll be on site with you, working with you to create this action plan that is very, very relevant to you and what you're facing over the coming months, possibly a year. And it's also repeatable, so you'll learn the practice, you learn the technique of doing it. You don't need us anymore, you just crack on and do it yourselves, but you'll enjoy it so much that you'll want us to come back and do it with you again.
I love that. And it's so different to, like I said, the other courses that we run, where majority of the courses are open courses. With this being so focused around an organisation, to really align it to their strategic vision, I think is really key. So bringing that group of individuals together, away from their day-to-day duties, to really focus on colleague engagement, is a real opportunity for organisations to really pull their teams together, get creative, get thinking, and really with you to facilitate that, to help to bring it to life. But for anyone that's needing to convince their management and their key leadership team for budget to invest in this, would you are there any statistics showing the proven benefits of engaged colleagues and that will actually have to a business?
Oh, there are loads and loads and loads of stats out there. So if anyone is wanting to put a business case together, highly recommend a bit of Googling. There'll obviously be loads of different sources out there. So if you take people like Simply Health and Perkbox, who are in that kind of reward sector, if you will, then they are also kind of doing more localized national surveys fairly regularly, and able to kind of report back. So things like potential people looking to move on from a role at the moment, and you can obviously extrapolate that back. For more sort of global insight, Forbes tend to release things fairly regularly, data fairly regularly. My go-to tends to be Gallup. So Gallup, and Best Companies to Work For as well, actually, that's another one that is very, very good, and reliable data as well, because it depends how much of a data geek you are, whether you want to just go with any number and kind of rock up with it, or whether you want to be able to kind of prove your findings. But Best Companies and Gallup are pretty good. Gallup did a survey fairly recently, and it showed that disengaged employees tend to have, and I will need to refer to actually, so 37% higher absenteeism than engaged employees, 18% lower productivity, which is the equivalent of a day, isn't it? Like 20% of a week is a day. So you're basically paying somebody, a disengaged employee, for 5 days, but you're only getting 4 days work out of them, let alone any other shrinkage that might be in there. 15% lower profitability. And they translated all this through, and it works out to about 34% of the salary of the disengaged employee. Now, if you've got however many potentially disengaged employees in your organisation, and 34% of their salary is the cost to the business, that soon gets into millions of pounds. And when you look at it like that, this course is a snitch, isn't it? It's a complete steal.
Absolutely. You wouldn't think of it until you break it down and really start to highlight the true impacts of that, when you break it down from an absence, attrition, and what it actually means. And that's even before you start looking at the productivity is actually that sliding scale of when they start to get disengaged. Actually, could it start earlier on in the journey and cost quality, or impacts to complaints, because ultimately your frontline colleague may just not be doing their best, not being their best self. So may not be given the level of service that maybe they've done historically, which could then drive a negative customer experience. So it can actually be even bigger than that, can't it?
Oh, yeah. Pick a number, any number. It's probably right.
but it's not great, let's face it. So
not at all.
Amazing. Well, thank you. You've obviously shared so many hints and tips in today's session, and it's been really insightful to just really help to bring that to life. So any of the viewers that are watching us, then the courses, as we mentioned before, is available, and they are bespoke to your organisation. For more information, please reach out to any of the CCMA Academy team, and we will help and have that conversation with you to then look at actually how we could tailor that to your organisation. And Nicola will then work with you to help to drive that improvement plan going forward.
Absolutely.
Nicola, it was great chatting to you, as always. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great day and a great weekend, everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.